Okay, all right. Well, we are going to call this meeting to order. So this is a special board meeting on Monday, January the 16th. The first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. And we want to welcome Dr. Hart back to our room, actually this room. We're gonna meet in a couple of different places to help us kind of go through the process that we began a couple months ago, but really last month in December. So thanks for being here. So take it away.
Thank you. Great to see everybody. Thanks for having me back. I tell you, it's fun to do this process start to finish. So started with the board, got to engage a lot of voices with the community. Was kudos to you folks. It's nice to have nearly 60 people in a room that cares about what's going on in the school district. That's pretty awesome. And so that's a reflection of you and your superintendent and the work that your teachers are doing. And so that's a good thing. Tonight is an opportunity for the board to kind of, if you will, kind of put your final touch on it. And so this process, as we've taken these 4 steps, really, if you will, these 4 different meetings. The first meeting was to kind of help set the stage. So set your base. The next 2 meetings were to provide input, to listen, to reflect, to start to gain what the community would like to see the next 5 to 10 years. This tonight is to kind of take all of that and how do we start to say, you know what, here's what we're going to focus on in the next 1 to 3 to 5 years. And so you have 2 things at your place. First thing is really everything that we've kind of collected through the process. I just want to walk through that just really quickly. First one is just a quick overview. It'd be more for, like when August and I visit, more for like minutes if somebody said, hey, what do you guys do for these meetings? And so just gives kind of a quick overview of the process that the board really undertook to develop this work and to develop this plan. Lays out the 12 focus areas, that themes, if you will, from night 1. On page 4, it then takes those themes and put them in those 4 focus areas that are maybe more familiar to you. As you kind of go to page 5, 6, a reflection of the vision, that successful graduate, and that mission. We're going to do just a little bit of work tonight around that. You're going to see from 7 to 10, this is the lion's share of the feedback when you think about of night 1. This is what people thought as were strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that they feel, not necessarily maybe what the board feels, but what they feel as a community are things that are good, bad, or indifferent. And then as you rotate or shift over to page 11, that concludes night 1. So we develop those themes from night 1. We attach them to what I would call focus areas. You have to start to narrow it down. It's kind of like a funnel. We have all this information and we got to get it to a point all the way down to the teacher, the student outcome level to figure out how can we then titrate it back up to actually accomplish what the board would like to accomplish. And then as we shift to the rest of it, page 12 and on, this is night 2. So this is what we asked the community groups to say, what is the purpose? What is the why? Why do you get excited about stakeholder engagement? And they gave us their responses. And then down below, what would some of those successful strategies be if we knew we were having some level of success with that focus area? Make sense? So why is it important? What level of success we would have if we're doing well? Now, that doesn't mean how we do it. That's for these folks. We kind of got the, if you will, the hard work of the board kind of done for, some time. And I'm going to show you tonight, how will that come back to you? Some boards, they do this and they put that in their folder and then maybe we don't get to look at it again. I know that's not what Mr. Nelson's intent is. And so we'll show you what that looks like from a board perspective to say, how are we doing? Are we putting the resources and the budgetary items in line with that plan? Is everything that we do at this table, if you will, going through the right lens? Because it happens, and I always use JV football, so not to poke any bears, but JV football comes up in Kansas at board tables often, okay? And so when you think about this strategic plan, are we making our decisions? Do we spend the majority of our time through this lens? Not necessarily the lens that you're getting a phone call about or an email about. Those things are important. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes those are not board discussions. And then the final piece, folks, is this is really the fruit of your labor. And we're going to finalize that tonight, really. I would encourage you next month to approve it as a board. This is the board strategic plan. Now, what you're not going to approve yet, that'll be coming down the road in the summer, would be how will we accomplish each one of these goals? That's where the hard work starts with your staff, your stakeholders, your site councils, your teachers. Let's start figuring out how are we going to do and look through this lens differently when you think about stakeholder engagement. What are we going to do? And let's use the feedback the community said was important to them. And so, but tonight we'll do a quick overview of that. Questions right now of anything that's in front of you? I personally, I've done this, I'll say 25 times, and I'm starting to get to the point where all of them look a little different. They really start to kind of take on your shape. Instead of having a kind of a cookie cutter approach, they're really starting to kind of look, hey, what does Clay County look like? Not necessarily Silver Lake or Little River or Manhattan, but what do you look like? And so we've done a lot of work, as you can see, a lot of those things are familiar to you. And now how do we put it in a way that our staff and our community can say, this is what we care about. This is what we're going to be great at. I think do we have any, like if you're a sports team, success, I'm a big Chiefs fan. I think I said that last time, but if we're going to be really, really good at something, we're going to have to just pick a few things that we really want to be good at. And so, for example, the Chiefs have decided we're going to be really good at offense. So we're going to have the best quarterback in the world, right? And so you as a district are deciding that these things are the things that we really want to be really good at. So I'm going to have you talk with your shoulder partner, but as you remember, as we started the first session with the board, I asked you this question. What is the relationship between the board and student success? I'm not going to have you answer it again, but I want you to think of it through a little different lens. Now I want you to think about what is the relationship between this strategic plan and student success. What does this look like from the lens of the board? So I'll give you about 69 seconds. Talk with your shoulder partner. Well, 69 seconds. Kind of depends on when I hear the chatter stop.
Foundation. You don't have to check in, say you're just gonna get. Something that you're meeting. Otherwise.
Right.
Yes. Well, and that would also. I kind of. Like you start out with that goal, and the next step now starts to map out how, like, how it's put into play that. Putting that.
I'm gonna pull you back here. So we don't need everybody to volunteer, but anybody have something that kind of resonates with the importance of the work that we've done and how you see student learning in the next so many years?
This should be what we refer back to when we're making decisions on how to allocate time and resources that so that we can be proactive instead of responsive to whatever's going on.
Yeah, I like that word, proactive versus being responsive. We're in a society right now that it's so easy to get what I want when I want it, however I want it, right? And unfortunately, it takes us away from really what our goal is. And so I like that. Thank you. Really add to that or things similar?
We talked about, you know, what maybe not relationship, but responsibility, you know, of a board is to, you know, help set goals for, you know, the superintendent to ensure that then all buildings, no matter what that flavor looks like, right, for each facility or each building, but to help contribute to the goals, which ultimately leads to student success. So.
Yeah, I'm going to show you a visual here that I love. But first, I want to give you this big picture you probably already know this, so it's kind of like you're reviewing for the test and you already know the answer, but this lag measure are these. So these things on the left-hand side, if you will, are the lag measure. So the lag measure is we want to win a Super Bowl. The lead measures are things that we have to do, if you will. These are the board level lead measures, but you'll have lead measures all the way from pre-K all the way up to post-secondary. Your 21-year-old program even. You'll have those lead measures that say, hey, how do we get kids prepared for life after high school? Those will be all the lead measures that really, in some sense, will help move the lag. And so if I was a high school principal, I'm going to have some lag measures as well that would help complement what the board wants done. But essentially, we're going to align all of these things together so that it's kind of like a sewing machine. There used to be a runner at St. Thomas Aquinas, and he was so fast that when he ran, it looked effortlessly. It was just like it was so smooth. And that's what we want the function of the board to be when you think about the learning goals of your district. We want them to be congruent. That doesn't mean that you don't challenge each other's thinking. That doesn't mean it's not going to be, from time to time a 5-2 vote. That's not what that means, but it means that everything that we do goes back to being that lens of how do we get to where we want to be and how do we do it so well that we're going to knock the socks off everybody else. And so if you think of it this way, we have really started to define this work already. So we've talked about what we want to do, why it's important to us. We've refined the mission and the vision. This isn't necessarily where we're going to end, but and not to make fun of anything and anybody's prior work, but these are starting to get to a point where we can own these so well because they're going to come off the tip of your tongue. I know it kind of sounds silly, but if I say, what's the vision of Nike? What do people say? Oh, well, that's hard, isn't it? Yeah. So how do we make that such the same feel when you think about what happens in your school district? Because if it doesn't, it gets to be clunky. And when it's clunky, your parents are like, well, I don't know. There's lack of communication. There's no transparency. They have no idea what they're doing. And so we want to make it that crystal clear for your staff and for your community. And so the next phase of this after tonight, we'll really start to figure out how do we start to put individual short and long-term goals together to make this work that the board says is important, start to kind of put it into motion. And then the last piece, which is probably the most critical, is the staff. The staff is the one that does the work day to day with kids, with parents, with their teams in their building. And so how do we make that congruent? But also, how do you involve them? They need to know that they have a high level of autonomy to figure out how to accomplish these goals. They're not going to say stakeholder engagement support goal, but they are going to say, hey, I have some ideas on how to accomplish high level or increased level of stakeholder engagement. And so when you think about this, it kind of overlays like this. So we've talked about this mission and vision. We've set these district goals. I'm going to show you at the end of the night when we finish, how do we align the superintendent evaluation? I have no idea what process you use now, but you should align your superintendent evaluation around your strategic plan, not what day it is and whether the coffee ran out, but really, this is the core work of the board. Is he doing well? What kind of support does he need to make sure that this happens? Are what we're doing at this board table reflective of that work? And that should be part of the daily, monthly conversation that he has with you. It should be like, you should be like, gee, we already know all this stuff. But this should be just repetitive and saying, hey, how do we align with this? And then we're going to start putting these stakeholder teams together that we've talked about. So site councils, parents, staff, maybe some kids now. Now we're going to start to put together, how do we start to accomplish these things? And now we have to start to say, now we need some building goals. Jacqueline has way more knowledge about curriculum instruction than I ever will, or even dream about it. But if you think about her expertise, she's going to start working with these building level teams. The goals that are in pre-K through 3, 4, up to intermediate are going to look different than they are in middle school. And they're a little bit different and kind of scaffolding, if you will, up to the high school, all the way to the point where the kids graduate. And so then that alignment starts to happen. And a high level building principal is going to take these goals and they're going to work directly in PLCs with their site councils, with their teachers in their building to say, how do we maximize what we're doing through a finite lens, if you will. Because it's all about making sure that we're honed in on the right work. As you know, and as the board's going to be influential about giving permission to say, we're going to stop doing some of these things. That's earth shattering, right? But the board's gonna have to say, you know what, those things were good, but maybe they don't align necessarily as much as they used to. And to be honest, your staff's gonna be appreciative of that, most of them. They're gonna say, thank you for giving us permission to get rid of some of those things. Now you're gonna find some, they're like, no, we've been doing this forever. I love teaching that book and I'm not giving that up, right? And so that's where the collaboration starts to happen to make this thing work. And it has to be in line if you think the outcomes of this successful graduate, if you ever have a chance to really maximize this, it's got to be congruent with one another. And so, all right, that's enough of me talking. Questions? Think globally tonight. So think again, big picture. This is not in the building, or this is not the day-to-day. This is the global piece. But I want you to think about those individual kids that are graduating from your communities. What does it look like? What do they need? What are we going to do as a board to make sure it happens? And then the outcomes of the state board. So first thing I'm going to have you do is if you go to page 5 and 6, Jeff, you're going to love this. Okay. With your shoulder partner, pretending you and I got on the elevator together, and you had about 60 seconds with me when we went from the ground floor up to the 10th, slow elevator. Okay, you've been on them. But I want you to do like somewhat of an elevator speech of how would you describe, my wife and I would like to bring our kids to this district. And I want you to describe to me why you'd want me to do that. What would be intriguing about the mission and vision that would be like, I got to send my kids here. So I'll give you about a couple minutes, but no more than 30 to 45 seconds of an elevator speech, how you would describe the mission and vision. I'll give you a little bit of a cheat sheet. I would use this one as well. Okay, we've kind of refined that from your work and the community's work. What I find is not helpful is to have the board wordsmith. That's never been something that works well. It just seems like we spend 2 hours wordsmithing on what comma and is and ours. Okay, so we've spent some time digesting what the feedback is. And this doesn't mean this is the final, but this is a good draft for you to look at. So what would you tell me on the elevator to sell your district that says, hey, we care about kids around the mission vision?
He doesn't know me very well, but I'll talk to
There we go. There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Now you're showing off.
I'm gonna say it's not a competition. It's not a competition. Here we have to agree.
Because I have heard that.
That's what you saw.
Do you wrote it down? We have some community. Like we use word. That we. Kids that come back. To the community, want to be part and not just.
Such a short elevator speech.
This is short elevator speech, you gave it in 5 seconds. Was that convincing?
We got 2 out of the 3 groups done. Up my 3rd group.
Then I would probably.
Okay, somebody ready to report out? All right, we'll let you go last, okay, so you can process this, get your thoughts, but
Here's my 5-second element.
Okay.
Elevator speech.
okay,
Your student will be happy, resilient, confident, respectful, responsible, and ready to move into society. If they come to our schools.
good, okay. Thank you. I didn't catch your name. Good, thank you.
I'm the fog. Yeah, old guy.
All right, Paige, your group, you guys were,
Well, we both individually kind of said the same thing, that our mission is individualized approach to care about each student on a personal basis for their personal success.
Yep.
Building them, yeah, the community, the building, the teachers, everyone.
you guys picked up on a couple things there that I'll come back to that I think are really important for the board to be unison or have some consensus around as they speak about the district. And so you guys both hit on.
We really talked about like, that we would. I feel like we would push community and community involvement and the community cares about their students' education.
Yeah, kind of all for one for all a little bit in that sense. Good. So did you guys pick up, and again, this is a draft, but did you pick up school communities? Anybody else pick up on that? I think it's a nice way to maybe amplify, but also recognize that you guys are a little different. This is a different dynamic than maybe some districts, some communities. The other thing I heard you, almost all three of you, each means different than all. And I know, I know that seems subtle, but when somebody says, I want all kids to be successful versus I want each kid to be successful, which parent do you want to be? When you're thinking about, am I going to send my kid to a district where all of them are going to be successful? That means that everybody's going to get something very similar. But each to me means that my kid's going to get what he or she needs at the level which they need it. And so I think that's a huge distinction that you'll see in both. So the vision, if you will, is if we're doing that mission every day in this district at a high level, the vision takes care of itself. That's what we accomplish, so to speak. So the vision says that they're post-secondary ready. Folks, that's 100 different ways to do things. Post-secondary is a ton of different options. You may be going right to the family farm. You may be going to an apprenticeship. You may go 4-year, 2-year apprenticeship, whatever. Lots of different avenues. You may be going right to the community doing something. And so the career, we want everybody to have a successful career at some level, right? And I think as you start to decide what a career means, what post-secondary education looks like, impacts the life. And so I'll expect that you guys will give feedback to Mr. Nelson if there's something that you feel like is just totally out of whack on these two statements. But I would also, how do you make this part of your monthly routine? How does this show up at your board table? How do you use this as your lens, if you will? But this has to be something that, corny as it may sound, when you get hit at the basketball court, reffing a game, that you can spew it out of your mouth and somebody feels confident that you mean it. And so that's where I think the board helps to kind of shape really and model the work that you expect to happen in the classrooms. Thoughts or additions or anything that you would add or subtract when you think about mission vision?
So two things. One, what pops out to me on the vision is it's each graduate. Even if our high school students don't graduate, we don't give up on them. And I don't know if I want to make that clear and make sure that they're not lost in that vision. So if we have a student who's not graduating in the usual way, then it seems like we have watched our staff do everything they can to get them that GED, to get them successful in a different way.
Yeah.
And then I attended a KASB conference related to strategic planning, and their board, after we went through this process, had these table mats at every board meeting that we sat down, and they'd be sitting right here for us to look at as a reminder. And it'd be really great if we could get that in front of us for every meeting.
I think there's a couple other strategies that Mr. Nelson, maybe it's already kind of employed, but aligning your agendas. Agenda items would funnel through one of these lenses. That's where you spend the majority of your work. You're going to have some other things that come in there, but a majority of the things that should and hopefully maintain the board's time would be through one of these lenses. It's kind of like the old 4 quadrants of necessity. If you're spending time at the top 2 most of the time, you're going to feel pretty good about accomplishing your work. If you're spending a lot of time down low, and unfortunately we did during COVID, we spent a ton of time down those lower 2 quadrants by necessity, maybe, but as we get back to this work, how do we spend our time up top? And I think this is a good step forward. Thank you, Linda. Other comments or thoughts about mission review? So, quick review, if you go page 11, just want to make sure you're clear on how, we had 12 themes. Those came from the work that, like I said earlier, that you got from night one from the community. Those themes were kind of divvied up, if you will, or categorized by two ways. Table groups, if you recall, top 5 per table, and then also everybody had an individual way to give their feedback as well. So when you think about 55, there were 9 table groups that said that was important, and then there were 55 individuals that said, you know what, communication transparency for me is most important. And then that funneled into these focus areas. And so, for example, they may overlap in several different focus areas, not just one primarily. So, for example, if you think about communication transparency, certainly shows up at the top one, shows up at staff recruitment and retention, and there's probably some overlap in the other ones as well. And so then you start to form these buckets of where should the strategy start to kind of form, if you will. And then the formation started our night 2 in that lens. And that's where you're going to spend your work tonight. So your work as a board, if you turn to page 12 is where we'll start. We'll take this one at a time. And this is your chance as a board to kind of put your final mark on it. Also kind of give final direction to Mr. Nelson, his staff, the district. It's not that we're going to discredit anything that's on here and say, hey, it's not valuable. It means that we have to have a starting point. We need a Deuce Vaughn. Okay, we need a Skylar Thompson, even though he came up a little short, looked a little frazzled yesterday. But we need those key individuals, we need those key people, we need curriculum, we need instruction. And so some of these things we will not start with, but we may go back to the well at some point and say, we've got these things maintained, we're going to pull this back out, and we're going to go back to the well that the community had earmarked, said these are important to us. I would also use this when the community comes back. I would encourage you in between year 2 and year 3, have a similar community group come back for a shorter session and just say, hey, how are we doing, folks? Are we doing good? This is the work that you said was important. Do you feel like we're moving in the right direction? Do you feel like we need a little bit? Has anything changed? And I always like to do it around, and Jacqueline will probably make fun of me, but I like to do start, stop, continue in that aspect because it's easy for community members to. Is there anything that we're doing that we need to just stop? Is there anything we haven't thought about that we need to start? And are the things that we're currently doing, should we continue? And so about between that year 2, year 3, it's just a great way to, again, engage the community, which is goal 1. So your task tonight in partnerships here is I want you to do a couple things. I'm just going to highlight this and I'll let you go. So I want you to read the purpose statements, and it's not going to take you very long. But on your top of just goal 1, stakeholders, what did each group say? So you probably know what your group said, but you probably haven't had a chance really to digest what the other 8 groups said. So I just want you to review that. And then that should, folks, be a direct reflection of this. So Brett and I and Jacqueline met, I think it was last week, wasn't it? And essentially to get ready for the board. Again, it's not that I don't think the board's capable. I think the board has life outside of boards, like work. I don't know if any of you have jobs, but I think it would be hard for you to take all these things and try to narrow it down to a sentence. And so we've got you a draft for you to look at tonight. But I want you to look at that so you got a good understanding of the why. The other thing I want you to look at as a group, I want you to identify 3. Board's never wrong, maybe 4 if you wish. So if Andy says, nope, we got 4 on this one and I'm not budgeting, okay, that's okay too, all right? But I want you to pick 3 that you feel like are a starting point. This is what I would say is year 1 priority. Again, it doesn't mean that those other ones that aren't picked don't matter. It just means that we have a place to start. So each one of you are going to, each group will identify 3 that they feel like are most important. Now, the numbers on the left, I think it's probably self-explanatory, but let me explain it. Those are the number of groups that felt like it was so critical that this is one of mine that showed up on my group. So for example, that first one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 6 groups out of 10 that thought, find ways to, in a location that we can communicate with stakeholders. They thought that was really critical. So you as a group, so April and Jeff, you guys will pick 3 out of that list that you think are most important. Last thing I'll have you do, is there anything missing? This isn't your only chance, but this is one of your last chances, okay? To just say, after we looked at all this, I feel like, whoa, that's not even on there at all. You can add that as well if you feel like there's something missing. So 3 per group, we'll report out. We'll go through each one of these and we'll kind of do a wrap up. We'll report after each one, mind you. I'm gonna set my time for about 5 minutes and then check in with you.
So we're doing these one at a time and we'll do them and then we'll move on to the next one, or are we supposed to just start going through them?
No, we'll do one at a time. We'll report out and go to goal 2. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This is an easy strategy. This is a strategy. Start with the things that I what I'm all doing is sweet.
Well, and I mean.
It's like for us, it was not just for us, not for our state.
Well, but to me, those are almost, I mean, the second one should increase and maintain effective communication, and also, if you can do that by developing a communication. You can find all this necessary.
Right.
information. So,
That-
Number 2 almost covers number 5, right?
I guess we're doing this too. I think that was just.
Right, you're doing,
All of this one. So.
so that, I mean,
That one that has our district stuff.
yeah.
Listen, I hadn't even been a little while the building one. Yes, and then the building one has to break. So this is the next meeting. That's. But I didn't know if that was more into that. Then we wouldn't do that side, but we just got on.
Yeah, I like that. Partnership.
And
I like developing. That's your job. You've already doing this.
I struggle with that a little because part of it is
Well, to me, some of that stuff feel like, truthfully, community partnerships might be something that's not gonna be involved in the rest of it.
If that works.
No, I wanted to.
Roundabout. Well, you can argue that, if we could get, if we can attract teachers. More skilled teachers. Because they can't find it, they have to stay home.
Sorry.
So that's the one for me.
Do it, but I also think it's like the community part.
I mean, I guess you.
I would put that on that why. Here. And then like. I don't know where you guys want to start and.
All right, folks, that's about 5 minutes. You need more time, less time? Good over here. Dave, you guys good?
Yeah.
All right, Madam President, we'll start with you. So, you know, by this time, I kind of make a little bit of a joke because by this time, people are tired of the sticky dots, okay? I had a board member in Junction City.
You
over there.
got 5 minutes, man. I have a pack out in my truck.
Hey, I have a whole bunch of, sorry, I got a whole bunch of sticky dots, but we're gonna do it electronically this time, okay? So call me corny, I've been called that before, but give me just a second, but we're gonna do it that way. That way everybody's got a little bit of a voice here. Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
All right, April,
Yes, sir. Do you want me to list the three?
please, ma'am.
Okay, so the first, develop a location for district stakeholders to find unnecessary information. The second, I'm giving you our top three. The second line, and then jump down to add a communication director for the district or grant writer.
Did you say the second one also?
Yes. 1, 2, and
And of course, this is need to be sent to the back, sorry. Okay, page your group, thank you. Sorry, any additions? That, okay, perfect, sorry.
You're fine. I don't,
For problem children.
we don't want to be difficult, we just are. So
That's like calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
That's a good way to-
I wanted to kind of consolidate some of the top three.
Yeah, perfect, tell me.
I felt like the main issue was number 2, to
Okay.
increase and maintain effective communication.
Okay,
But that the first and third thing on the list are really strategies for how to maintain those. And so they really go into developing that second one.
Yeah.
And I think Linda kind of hinted on that communication director would maybe fit under that strategy. Is that what you were saying?
And like an action item underneath.
Action item of that strategy to support that goal.
yeah, so when the communities, you guys aren't problems, I mean, you could be, but you're not right now. It
Not
seems
in this
like when the
situation.
community gets together, they automatically want to go right to the how, and the how would be, hey, let's just hire a communication director, that's a
Right.
check mark. So I promise you that will not show up on here, even though it's important. that should be a strategy of how do we develop a job description? How do we develop that person in?
So I felt like some of those, not that they are less important,
Yeah.
but they were more strategies that would support number two.
Perfect. Yep.
So I guess our circle goes between 1 and 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
There's
don't
more.
know. And then. Did we say, okay,
Community
number,
buy-in.
yeah, so our second one was to develop community buy-in for the early childhood opportunities. It was such a resounding topic throughout every aspect of the community's input. And not that we have to, in this particular strategy, spearhead the whole thing, but we are a conduit that can be used for community engagement and navigation through that.
Yeah.
In that need for the community.
I mean, I think that's what Jeff and I touched on specifically related to that piece, which is what kind of that responsibility, right, versus relationship thing
Right.
that I brought up earlier, like, what is the board's responsibility for that specific part? And I
Correct.
think you're gonna find that element of early childhood coming out in a lot of other places.
It's listed in all.
It's really listed in
Yeah.
all, so that's where we struggled with.
Well, it's
choosing
either,
that as one
either
of the
you
top
provide
three.
community buy-in, or you provide the facility, or you provide the staff, or where do you start and stop as a board?
In our,
Mhm.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
is it our responsibility to provide the ways and means? Or is it maybe to provide the facility, which I think we have to some sort with Lincoln already with our early childhood stuff going on. But do we need to expand the facility, or do we go to other means as a board to say, hey, we've done quite a bit for the community in this aspect. What's the community gonna do for us?
Absolutely.
You know, as far as that goes. I think everybody realizes it's an issue and it's a problem. And it needs to get better because of the factors that lead into, early childhood development, so.
So this is great conversation, and essentially what we're looking for tonight is just this, and so. We're taking this, let's say, or the superintendent's taking this, say, first thing I need to do is set up some type of stakeholder group. So we can kind of diagnose what we're doing well, maybe what are some additions, what is the board or the district's responsibility, what's gonna be the community. The other piece that you think about it here, does your staff care? Does your staff think that, hey, I'm gonna stay here if I can raise my kids here and if they have a place to go while I'm teaching? I don't know. And so I think this is a big picture item that we need to get some input, and I think the direction's been clear right now.
See, and I think the other part there, it's not just for our staff. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
that was listed in one of these other deals that's, provided for our staff, but I think at this point. Our communities have gotten to the point where it needs to be addressed. Community-wide, not.
Mhm.
As far as that.
Good.
So, yeah, so how do we develop into that? And then lastly, yeah,
Culture of being proactive, but how is that measured?
we didn't know how you would
So-
measure that, and if some of those other
Stakeholder engagement.
strategies go more into that as a strategy. So.
Yeah, good. So technically you guys have 5. We asked for 3, that's okay. No, I'm just teasing.
I prefaced this whole thing by. We're problematic,
They let off.
Yeah.
right out of the.
If we're not having.
If
fun
I'm
together-
nothing, I'm honest.
Hey, that's great.
It's
That's
a
great.
blessing and a curse.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right, last week,
So we felt the same way.
Ready?
So we started with number 2 because we felt that number 2, if you did number 2, you're actually probably gonna resolve, like 1 and 3 and several others. So we felt a lot of the same way Paige did. We went with we felt being proactive was important in doing that, so proactive was for 1. And then we went with development of community partnerships, because we felt that covered a thing like the early childhood and things like that, and develop partnerships with that, that one kind of covered several
Some
of
of
the
the
other
other-
ones too.
But
so
you had
that
the
we
same
went
feeling that maybe some
with-
of these needed.
So we went with that
Funding.
one, because we felt those other ones were important, but we felt that also encompassed multiple things.
I-
So
I would. I see what you're doing there.
So you guys did good on this first one. This will be kind of the model we use. So when we come back, or when Mr. Nelson, excuse me, comes back next board meeting, he will refine, if you will, this section with your feedback, and that's a starting place. It may be a little bit more general language. It may be a little bit more of a goal statement versus a how statement, but it'll be the same theme, if you will, of what you've given feedback on.
So we'll try to capture what they said, and we can go back and listen to and write them as goal statements underneath each.
We want to kind of go from the what standpoint. I mean, if the board wants. What we'd like to have is some further investigation about early childhood needs in the district and the continued development. That doesn't mean we're going to own all those, but it means that we need to figure out. What relationships we need, who needs to be sitting at that table, what other entities, blah, blah, blah. But the general goal should be, how do we grow an early childhood program of some sort? So, yeah, good. All right, goal 2 is all around this responsive culture of learning. Now, when you think about this responsive culture of learning, to me, it's simple. Are we getting each kid what they need when they need it at the level of which they need it? And so review the why, the purpose, and then go ahead and identify 3 to 4 again that you feel like resonate with you and your partner.
Right. So this, so this is all on this slide. Vision from its middle school. This, I guess they think of it at high school, but I think of how the kids have all years are into a sense. Would think about it. That's what this. That was. Declaration. You're right. That was this. So like. Partnerships, careers, like this. Developing the grade of the appropriate ways. Thinking about this, so that grade appropriate level. So by the time we graduate. I know. They should have, so I just, that I just said earlier, I keep those. Okay. But also when they're not going to. About that last. That last.
Sure.
2, 3. But that will be going to early. Mentions is to get. She's that.
I think, behavior, business.
Right. Yeah.
Try not to change them all you want, because then if you do too much combining, then the community like. So I try to, why would we say that? Even though we collapse.
It's pretty, this, like this, is a kid who has. Who needs speech and math small group and reading. So this behaviors to prevent bullying. Independent adult contributing to society. This helps them contribute
Some
to
of
society.
it,
This is
I think it's the operation, just
This helps them.
community partnerships and post-secondary. Because, you know, again.
No, I know what you mean. Those. Things with this one.
Almost like it's, you could almost call that or put that develop real world experiences into that collaborative relationships.
Whatever the word
You
is.
know, to develop collaborative
What
relationships.
is? This is a separate. Okay.
Give, you know, to real world. It's an individual thing. That's a group to the project.
Especially. We're doing for academic. So every school has.
Not just my word, you know, some of these kind of things have been before I came to high school.
Career and
You know, when you bring in that. Right.
Sorry.
No, that's 3K all the way.
We have.
Okay, 1 second. 30 seconds. Thank you, Deborah. 30 seconds it is.
That's the last.
Oh, my gosh. This here.
Well, they did like.
Yeah, pull you back.
They did like that last one.
And Paige said earlier, she's not the person in the group that's problematic, but she did say she wanted to go first, so. You know. Anyway, Paige, your group gets to go first.
That's because we have to go last thing.
Let that be a lesson.
Yeah, all right. So again, we tried to combine these. I felt like there was a lot of compilation that could happen. So one of them would be, let's see where I've got it on the paper here. I have written down it's the number 2, identify necessary early intervention for academic and behavior. But that
And we
also
were
ties into
thinking-
the 7 habits for pre-K 12.
Yeah, some of those kind of went in with that. But the early identification was also like.
So sorry, the
the
early,
MTSS structuring that we do for reading strategies at a young age. Those sort of early interventions that set a kid up to be successful long-term.
So what I have written is the early intervention for academic and behavior, so that down below, every student has an opportunity, equal opportunity.
So
With
that
high
the result
expectations.
then would be, so our second one is the,
367.
and then the third one would be the collaboration of all the ones that go together for the career, the CTE pathways, the, developing real world experiences.
So this is career exploration reflecting their IPS, which includes collaborative relationships, UTA pathway, and real world experiences.
Yeah, I think so I have those, the second, third one, kind of a combination. They kind of go, they marry nicely together, if I heard you say, with behavior and academic.
Yeah, because so the very first one is the second one down.
Yep.
But really, if your behaviors interventions, you would have a robust social emotional curriculum.
Correct.
So we were just trying to that's important. It's
Yeah.
not any less important.
Like you have the academic interventions, you have the behavior, emotional interventions, and then you have using what you've learned in both of those to take them from a high schooler to an independent adult.
So you're saying a focus on early intervention academically and behaviorally.
Yes.
Right.
And
And then
then
that would,
and then the high school level IPS.
Then I see, yeah, you combine those four, they're all,
yeah, they're all very, very similar.
and then the high expectation. Got it.
Individualized, again, that goes back to kind of our elevator pitch of that each student would have equal opportunity for high expectations.
Got it.
That
Makes
makes
sense to
sense.
me. Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, because some of this massaging is to combine these, so they're more applicable from a 30,000 foot view, so that's good.
Yeah,
Good process in there.
and I'm not faulting any of our groups. I think all of these are great, ideas.
Yeah.
It just is how do we
You bet.
combine them to,
Well, and part of the reason with the community, you gotta keep, bless their heart, I know you're listening, but they're not always the experts in the classroom, so they're just describing what they feel and see from their kid.
yeah,
And so it's really good feedback, and as you go from a board down, we just need to start to kind of say, what does it look like? So this
right, and some of
feedback's,
this kind
yeah,
of fits, we feel like some of them kind of fit in the same suitcase.
yeah, that's great. All right, Andy, let's slide over to you.
Deborah, room down. I didn't give them more. Okay.
Deborah, you're on.
We talked about, the develop grade appropriate life skills. We really liked the way that it said grade appropriate life skills, that it would be a building block starting at the lower level and building so that by the time the student graduated from high school, they would have the life skills that they would need, whether they're going to post-secondary or just into the workforce.
Okay.
We liked that one. And then we kind of combined
The same one that you guys did on the
Yeah.
development collaboration relationships with communities to provide, because again, it
All the
provides
career
career
exploration
exploration.
and community partnerships,
It just,
real world
sounds like it.
experiences.
yeah, the real world experiences going out, we felt it with that. And then we also like the develop alternative learning options on that, because we thought that was kind of a catch-all kind of. We felt that was kind of part of it, that needed to be.
It's a good catch. And yeah, I love that, and I'm not biasing the group, but I love that because it feels like the longer I do this, the more diverse the needs of the kids are. And so it is just hard in let's say, a comprehensive high school, Wakefield, Clay Center, to provide everything everybody needs. That's interesting. I'm curious what it looks like. You guys have a lot of resources here. There's some creative ways to, I don't know, partner with other groups. So I appreciate you highlighting that. That's interesting. So.
Yeah.
All right. Madam President, you were up.
We don't have any.
Sitting this one out.
He's at this one.
Hey, I know you're just teasing me.
You guys took all our answers.
Probably summarize by saying similar things. I guess a couple of things that just jumped out that maybe could use some clarification, potentially. So So the include training piece, that's in number 2. So, I mean, obviously we know what training is, however, like, what exactly is meant by that include training that you have in parentheses there?
Oh, you know, somebody along the way, and I could pull it up, but somebody along the way said something around early interventions plus professional development, I think, for staff is what that
Okay.
means.
Okay,
Yeah, so does that help?
yeah,
And
it
so
does.
normally, instead of me adding a separate one that says professional development for early
Okay.
interventions, I
Got
just
it.
combine it with that. So one of those groups, April said that.
Okay. I mean, I think, you know, you summarized it, you know, well, and I guess my take on that is, you know, teaching the curriculum piece, so kind of the nuts and bolts, the X's and O's, but then also the behavioral, the social emotional, you know, things of that nature, giving them, you're looking at an equal sign, right? Both sides of the equal sign are the same, because you have to have both pieces essentially to be successful, I think, as adults. So, you know, whatever that looks like, you guys have all said that.
So I'm doing another tally on the second one.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yes, I think probably, but just as important, the develop collaborative relationship, community, partnerships. And then the real world experiences, all of those kind of mesh together. But then I think really important too, Andy, is what you said, the alternative learning options. I think we do have some resources that we could share and use and just think differently with, that might be better suited for everyone. So I also don't know what that looks like. However, I think it's something
Yeah.
that we should explore.
So you can start to see, we're only on goal 2, but how cool the board is starting to kind of take all this information and turn into something that we can use. And so kudos. Any additions that we left out here?
And just so I'm clear with you guys, so you're saying your career exploration, collaborative relationship, CT, kind of that group of 4 are common theme like the others.
Mhm.
There's like 4 in a row there. Just can't do one without the other.
Then I think I heard you say some kind of focus and attention on early interventions academically, behaviorally, socially. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then the develop alternative learning options.
And if you notice, childcare, early childhood was on there twice.
Thank you.
No, I mean,
No,
there's
you're
2 different
saying-
bullets,
Just
Right.
but
that's
the theme of
again,
the concept of
yeah.
it is, here we are, we're on our second deal, it's there again.
very apparent.
Yeah. All right, let's slide over to 3. So again, same kind of rinse and repeat here. This is talking about recruitment and retention. Page permission granted if you want to have 6 this time.
We'll start making more dots.
Just go ahead and start copying and pasting it out.
Sorry, I hate pick on you, you just having to sit close.
No, you're fine. I can take advantage of it.
Teachers. Teachers. Not as much as teachers. And then there's still people that are like, oh, this is true. Yeah. So I have this station to the beginning of these skills and more benefits. And it's a question of $100,000. And then those like, it's okay. And now you can present to the. Teachers and students. This is putting a lot on retention for nursing. And this really is about, is more than that's what I've been saying from the that's what I was just telling
Well, this is incentive packages. Compensation, it could encompass daycare, childhood opportunities for staff, which fall under that. Or fire increase, but potential culture, this is most professional development where they have more say into their. So they can some of that.
Right.
Focus some things that they-
Which is my own.
Which is, I think, good, and that's part of that. First, after and this, I think that. Career ladder leadership opportunities can be some of that.
Yeah,
You know,
so
first
everything
staff,
can increase.
something like this.
You can't
It's still,
Then you give them the ups and downs.
it's like the. I guess moving, moving up the ladder and moving or going more, like they have more of a voice or more vocal or something, it's more of a. It's a leadership type of position or something. And then still, I like to share. With this one, I think it encompasses. Multiple months. Yeah.
The second one. Yeah, I agree. I think it encompasses.
These two career and education focus.
That was on the videos. One of the layers.
Age. I like the one that, like the communications, but my staff feel like there's. Kind of left out all the where that could be. Yes. You know, and this leadership opportunity. I like. And I think that might have that. Yeah, that's some of the things that's about. I mean, I think if you have opportunities for leadership. And it's shown there's more buying. You feel ownership. If there's leadership opportunities, you just have to figure it out. You have more ownership. You feel more connected to each other.
And then, yeah.
Yeah.
That
We're just.
touch on the value.
We're just like, what?
You mean
That too. Yeah. I tell you, I didn't realize. Teachers are.
Go about one more minute.
Leadership between the teachers. Yeah, I don't know how that looks, but it's to that. Yeah.
It suits you well.
She said I could have it.
It doesn't say that, but.
Quite a few cups out there.
Kathy, I'll bring it back sometime. I'll probably bring it on a day she's not here. Well, literally here and goes.
Stop it right there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, pretty much same. All right, I'll bring you back together, and I think Deborah or Andy, go over spokesman, you guys get to go first.
Right, yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, well, again, we started, with the second one, to develop a more robust incentive package for staff, recruitment and flex. And we felt that kind of covered, and of course, that identify ways to increase compensation, where the date, maybe that's through developing daycare, early childhood opportunities for staff. Could be,
Right, that
part
could
of,
fit in there.
into a compensation package or something to help with, so we felt that one kind of covered those. Then we went with, effective communication and transparency for all staff. And felt that went. And that kind of tied into the, developing a culture where staff felt safe, valued, and heard, if there's that open communication too. So we felt that those two kind of worked hand in hand. So we went with those two. And then we went with, develop, career ladder and leadership opportunities for staff, because we felt if there's leadership opportunities, then you feel like you have there's an ownership feeling. Then if you have leadership, then that you're gonna feel more valued, and you're gonna want to stay if you feel like you have a stake in what you've done or what you've created a place. So those are where we were at on those.
Yeah, this is a huge. I don't know what we're gonna do in Kansas, but that rumor mill of this onslaught of districts are gonna go to 4-day week. If everybody goes 4-day week, it's not really that big a perk because everybody's doing it, and we're still fighting for the same people, right? It's, no, we will find out. So, Madam President, your turn.
Okay,
That mean we can go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Jeff, you have that Tommy's board to decide that. Yes,
I'll let you tell it. They probably won't do it.
they might.
I'm just kidding.
They might not like it. I don't know how many seats this boardroom holds, but we fill it up.
okay, so we did, we focused on the compensation piece. I think that's important always. And definitely is a focus. Also the second one, so the incentive package, which as Jeff and I were talking, most of actually these things we do offer. However, we probably need to communicate, promote, whatever that word is better. So I think probably can be a focus around that as well. So we liked the culture piece, so develop a culture where staff feel safe. However, I think valued and heard is important, but we like put the word engaged instead. Just maybe, but because I feel like then that gives them some ownership, accountability, rather than just, I just want to be heard piece. And then finally, we also discussed one of them that jumped out was the career ladder and leadership opportunities for staff. Again, that value piece, being responsible and accountable for your own result.
Perfect. Thank you. Paige.
So we are going to work to increase compensation. And with that, in any way we can. However, also in that incentive package, if we can't give them as much money as we would like to, then maybe we can offer some more incentives that make the workplace culture an added bonus. And I don't know what that, there's no strategies right now, but guess the whole picture of the compensation, not just one part of it. And then providing professional development, we felt was important. And then the last one was to develop a culture where staff feels safe, valued. We added the word respected. That could be more of a community-wide effort. I think that one of the feedbacks we got from the survey from Emporio State was that the teachers didn't feel their occupation was highly
The value.
valued or.
Something like that, yeah.
But that we don't honor their expertise.
Mhm.
Yeah, good insight. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I live with a teacher. Yep. They feel like they're, and I think there's a lot of professions, not just teachers, nurses,
And I
healthcare.
brought that up
people.
to Linda. I said too, that I think there's a lot of occupations right now in general with the culture feel like they aren't.
I don't think there's many that are, I'm gonna say, as poorly compensated and as disrespected as educators.
Yeah.
And whatever we can do to fix that. I mean, at least in the others, when we get disrespected, we get compensated for it. But
Yeah. No, that's, yeah,
what can we do to help?
yeah, good.
That's a new line I'm gonna use when I get home tonight. Don't be right, I'm poorly compensated and been disrespected for 35 years.
We also said though that a more.
I'll be back, I'll be out.
I'm going to go sit in the window at the household and watch that conversation go down.
Jeff, I know you well enough. I think we're starting to build kind of a bond. I have an extra bedroom in. Tell me how that works out, Rick.
Also just developing that, we talked about developing that culture of a workplace where people want to be really is a sign of a mature employee. Because once you've been around the block a time or two and you've seen cultures where you don't want to be, and we're all shaking our heads, but I think that there is something to say for our building cultures, and every building has a different culture. And that does make a difference on retention and where people want to spend their time, yeah.
It's a little bit of a moving target, superintendent probably sitting there going, his brain hurts. Because like, if you're a brand new teacher, potentially I want all compensation. I want
Right.
a high salary.
No, I absolutely.
As I get a little bit
About that.
deeper into my career, I want better benefits. As I get older, and I'm at that older side
I
now,
want that
I want a culture
leadership.
that I feel like I'm making a difference, that my boss values what I do. And so it's kind of like this continuum that we're trying to create. But great feedback forward. So, all right, last one here, number 4, it's all around facility. I want you to remind yourself it's around resources too. And so resources that would be reflective of your goals. And so it's a little bit different way, but we kind of put those together. So reflective of resources as well.
And Britton, you did a good job of kind of focusing us to and combine not just a facility separate goal, but like you said, resources. And I don't remember how you articulated that the other day, but a lot of the feedback that we got back wasn't just facilities. It was also, we need the resources to do our job. And so we attempted to combine that. Our intent was, tell us if we didn't do it right, but our intent was to make it clear that it was facilities and the resources that were needed to operate.
So, and I want to put that point in, thank you for reminding me, but in this, you'll see community unity. You'll see common growth. I don't know, maybe this is not something the board needs, but I thought in particular through the mission, school communities being plural, I think starts to kind of say, hey, we value all aspects of our district. And I think this is one of these goals where I don't want to say it's just a catch-all, but there was a certain level of feeling that says, hey, it's not just if Wakefield gets something, Clay County should get it. They should get what they need and at the level of which they need it. So I think that articulates kind of the conversation we had about the reflection of feedback. So I'll let you go.
He was there. First to keep up.
Be careful, people will say. Not just.
Yeah.
Only because I felt like this was more, I understand what you're saying. Yes, we have the facilities for them. So I think that is, let's see.
She's having those CTs.
That's kind
For, so we have the four things, I was just thinking.
Because we have the same outcomes during the strategy.
Yep. So that's the only difference in that I did with one instead of. This one, because I felt like it was more of the list of, well, that includes maybe this.
Accomplished.
Right, and so.
I just thought that was a half time to do this. And like that was like we're.
So it's maintained.
And then maybe like this one would go and like.
So those are the.
Well, yeah, what's it direct?
Actually, we both agree on the different ones.
Because.
And then it's, I think it goes, all of those fit into.
Yeah.
You know, developing CTE and, you know, this goes into that.
Right. I think I would like that.
Okay, this one gets a separate one, that's what you're saying. Okay.
It's part of it. It's part of it. It's gonna take us. To do.
Require us to.
Yeah, the community buys. Yeah, agreements.
It's
Well, but mine was like. Like just remember kind of specifically about that. So it doesn't matter, it all goes, I don't.
CTE.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mhm. Fit into this. bigger goal.
Such a large spread.
Right.
She's probably mad at me.
You don't have to work in shit.
No, she is, she's volunteering. She doesn't get paid. No, actually, yeah. That's kind of like my son. He bought a truck from me. I said, "Can you put your wife's name on it with your name?" He goes, "Right, I'll just put her name on it. Don't be put mine on it." I said, "Okay, that's what I'll do."
Right. Yeah, that's. Well, yeah, it's extremely hard to find them. Yeah. But hopefully some of that stuff that we touched on the last one. Some of that.
There's more ways than one that you can do that. I've been underappreciated. Compensated. Decades. You want me to do what?
Feel like you're a waitress.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need a little more time to look at the menu. Haven't quite made up my mind yet.
Andy's on your contract.
Menu.
About one more minute.
Sold out. all the-
So like
Yeah.
this, this. And this.
Saturday, 28th.
Because this is.
I usually go to the one.
They all kind of. sort of together, but they're not addressed in the other.
This year's just been things that we had been since January.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
me too.
Oh,
They always do this one because Saturday, well, Sunday would be the last day.
We're saying like,
Well,
all of that.
Monday, Monday, yeah. Pretty good deal. They took some kids, the rest of them took some kids, something that's really.
And this kind of group of things up here.
Little girl from Jennifer, she's like 9 years old. She's oh, actually, she like. They have bird pictures. You can have bird and mom. I told presidents. You can order. It's very good.
All right, folks. Yeah. I'd like to have the breakfast combo number one.
With a large cup.
Yeah, we can do that. Andy. Okay, Madam President, you'll finish this up.
okay. So we started with develop and build early childhood education opportunities. We focused on the plan and build for future facilities that support CTE pathways, hands-on learning and real world opportunities. Liked the way that that encompassed, communities. Kind of back to the mission. Also the develop clear goals and long-range plan, including capital outlay and facilities. And probably a highlight on community collaboration, for sure. So buy-in, collaboration, support, kind of goes with all of the above.
Systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we talked quite a bit about the technology piece, but I think we both feel like those are just table stakes anymore. We do a pretty good job and then we just have to do it. So I didn't,
I think those are givens.
yeah.
Gotcha.
If you're gonna stay ahead of the game,
Yeah.
you gotta keep your.
Oh, yeah.
Going, you gotta
Right.
keep your. And then if there's changes, you gotta put the PD in there. I mean, that's a given. I don't think we can go without that.
Yeah.
For sure. Great.
Perfect, thank you. Page, Linda.
Very similar. We had, well, yeah, so we had merge the fourth one down. Increase opportunities for learning. But now that they point out the community collaboration of the other one that, develops into that. And then again, how you kind of want to break down what fits under what areas, so. Well, we'll just tell you the fourth. Plan and build for future facilities to support CTE. Develop and build early childhood education opportunities. And then the technology and resources. But we felt like all of those could fit under the develop clear goals and long range plan, including capital outlay. Does that make sense?
Yep. It does. Yeah, good, thank you.
So, we felt, all those three were kind of all grouped together, to merge both communities to increase opportunities, the future facilities for some pathways and the childhood education opportunities, early childhood education opportunities were all kind of one thing. We're all trying to expand or looking, to do more. And then we felt then develop clear goals in the long term, that we're gonna have to do that to accomplish that. We're not gonna be able to go out and just build a bunch of new, we're gonna have to have goals, strategic planning, we're gonna have to have that community collaboration and buy-in to accomplish that. And then, we took then, we felt the develop and maintain curb appeal and the hiring of quality custodial staff and, the development of safe learning environment was all kind of basically, I guess, something we need to do to maintain, we get these, but how we maintain those and by, having getting good quality staff and
To maintain the facilities.
maintaining our facilities once we have them. And part of that is, I think, we have nice facilities, we do that, and that kind of creates that safe learning environment.
So, okay, I want to make sure I did that right.
So
So
I kind of combined, we combined a lot on that last one.
Everyone was hating on us in the first one.
You started
great,
And then
great model. Dave.
Yeah, we were currently using thoughts.
So as I learn to do this job, next time I'll start with Andy's group. So then,
We'll cover everything.
Yeah.
no, it's fun. I was telling Jacqueline during our time here, it's fun when you get to know a board, because then you can have some open-ended dialogue, and it's not this, this awkward feel sometimes, but let's see if this is coming up here. There we go. So hey, as we finish up tonight, because we're right at that time frame. So I want you to look at this, and I want to remind you of your timeline. I want to encourage you a couple of things as we kind of part ways this evening. So we're just finishing up what I would think is the board's lion's share of work at this point. At no means does it's not ever going to come back to you, but now there's going to be some significant work and time where the administration, the superintendent is going to have to start developing these stakeholder teams to figure out how we're going to accomplish this work. That will come back to you at some point. This is probably not set in stone, but somewhere into the summer, there's going to be some of these things that I know as a district that they're going to want to start implementing as soon as the fall, as soon as August. There might be some others that, hey, we got committees set up, we got some collaboration set up, but we're at no means ready for any type of implementation or any type of, scaled work. And so the other thing I'll encourage you, as you look at that timeline, is really start to develop your board agenda around this core work. I feel like the high functioning boards have this at the center of their table all the time. It helps several things. It helps your development as a board. It helps keep the focus. If you get a brand new board member in here that says, you know what, all I am is going to come in and I want to go after all the coaching and all the sponsorship programs. Well, it helps to say, well, where does that fit in with what this board and the boards before have already set as a tone and as a vision? That doesn't mean that those things aren't going to come up, and that doesn't mean you're not going to have conversations around those. But what it does is say, hey, we're going to keep focus on what we feel like is most impactful if you read to prepare for each student. And so when you think about that, and I include the evaluation in here, it may not be what you want to do, but starting as early as June, July, superintendent would start to develop a self-assessment around this work. He would start to identify what those short-term goals would be for next year around this work. And then the board, somewhere in that August, September range, would sit down executive session, say, yes, a little bit more here, a little less here. And then that would become a board team reflection of how the superintendent would be evaluated. As you continue through that, this evaluation should not be an event one time a year in February. Evaluation should be a process. And so now the event in February should be about as easy as this. Sign off and be done. But all this work that we're doing throughout the year, again, this is just a sample. But Mr. Nelson may want to say, hey, a couple times a year, I want to touch base about what our staff and our district are doing around responsive culture of learning. Bringing teacher teams in, bringing kids, bringing in examples of what they're doing in the buildings, K through 12. He doesn't have to lead all that work. He's going to lead it, but he's not going to facilitate all those things. But showing the board how those lead actions are impacting the lag should be ongoing. I certainly wouldn't say one time a year you unpack all 4 goals at one board meeting. I would say you want to kind of serpentine those in across the way. It also, if you'll see that, a good way to do this is when you renew superintendent contract. This all fits together. All the vision, everything that the board desires to do, all should come within a really coherent timeline that you would, as a group, would adopt. And so this keeps you on the straight and narrow as far as these goals and keeping straight and centered. Friday notes, et cetera, et cetera. So what questions you have, what comments, other directions that you would give superintendent at this point around this work?
I have this isn't positive stir. I would like it if our number 2 would be our number 1. So that students are always our top priority. Because what it looks like right now is that our stakeholders are the priority. If we don't want to put any numbers by them, that's fine, but I'd rather see responsive culture of learning being to the top.
We can take the numbers off if you so, I mean, if that's flexible there, so whatever you folks think.
I could see that if you see a number, it means
Yeah.
one's more important than the other.
I
That's a
didn't see
good-
it
I
that
hadn't
way,
thought
but now
about
it
No, I
kind
can't
of jumps
unsee it.
out. Yeah, no, I don't unsee it.
Very thoughtful, Linda, that's good.
Yeah.
Because somebody's gonna look at it and go the same thing, they're gonna go,
Yeah.
watch our kids second. Yeah, I think that's good insight. Would it be helpful if we took the numbers off? Put some diamonds, put something, left some circles, I don't know. Maybe we could put 3, 7, 9 in each one of those, I don't know, something to take the numbers off, because
Visual is good, right? I mean, I do think that you want to see the separation of the individual goals. I just don't think numbering them is appropriate now that you mentioned
Yeah.
that, so. Right. But something to bullet them, right, to kind of categorize. Group, individual group.
We'll
Yeah,
get
good.
someone more creative than myself to come up with some. idea.
yeah, no, good, thank you, Linda. Other thoughts? About the
One
process?
challenge we may have. Is we're gonna take this feedback and we're gonna put them in some goal phrased. Formats that try to articulate the feedback you've given. Our first DLT meeting is February 1st. And we're gonna use. These as our footprint to kick that work off. And that's kind of a hard date that is hard to change because we have subs in, we have the day reserved. the place
Give us
reserved.
more insight as to what that day looks like.
Well, we're still working on planning that, and a lot of
Okay.
that's gonna depend on. What this
Well-
final project,
Well, you're saying
Just-
to finalize this for that date.
what do you think, Jacqueline? Do we
My-
have enough
my-
to start?
My question in that
From their
was,
dot, I didn't realize that until I saw the dot then tonight, so I would say yes. we
well,
do.
no, my thought was that our process was not. We started and we're done in that same meeting, and so does this give them enough framework and, guardrails on the superhighway? To kind of start that conversation?
I think it does, and if we tie that into some of the data piece. And the outcomes and the breaks, I
I mean, I feel like the themes are fairly
think they are.
aligned and clear that you guys provided tonight.
I also feel like. Everyone had a voice and all the groups had very similar feedback as to what those.
And I
In
think when we
general,
communicate to
general.
them that you're still gonna see this again, and. So then they'll be able to go back to their buildings on February 13th,
It's like a
And
working
share
version, right?
some work,
It's like a working version.
and then we're back
finally
again together.
finalized.
In April,
Mhm.
and you guys will have seen it then at the
Mhm.
February meeting in March.
Mhm.
So
But it's
then I think
directionally correct.
it'll be okay.
Oh, can I ask a question? Is there anything on here? I mean, obviously, we've had some feedback tonight, quite a bit, that we would kind of refine these, that what I would call outcomes. Is there any feedback that would give you any hesitation to say that this isn't a really strong final draft that you could take to your staff? Is there anybody that says, whoa, we need to really do a lot more work with it before that would happen? Yeah, so then we can kind of wordsmith, refine, kind of really get to a point where the board says, this is really reflective of our thoughts. But it probably wouldn't be a lot different. It'd be some subtle things to get to, that way the staff could start to unpack it.
When you're meeting on the 3rd, you said, the first, so is that an all day meeting with the team?
we'll probably use 3/4 of it for this.
Okay.
And then the last fourth where we had visioned, separating out into two committees, one to start looking at the graduation requirements. And one to work on the communication, that leaves that day for the staff. That's normally there's somebody, we send something out to
So
share.
this is
So,
what we did.
yeah.
I mean, because.
And it'll help, so on the 13th, we know there's consistent communication at their buildings, because they're with their buildings on that day.
The objective with this to the staff and that day would be to the team, right, is these are the 4 emerging areas that have been identified. And with this, then we want to start developing goals for each individual. I mean, obviously we'll develop goals for Mr. Nelson, and then he'll cascade them down to the building level and so forth and so on, but you're not gonna get there all in one day.
It'll
right?
take the whole spring semester.
Okay, okay,
Like, we won't be done with our,
right.
and remember, our hope and plan is to, like Dr. Hart shared, was board goals, superintendent goals, building goals, principal goals, all the way down to the teacher level.
Mhm.
And then, there you go, and then tie that into our accreditation process too,
Mhm.
to where we're not doing separate work in separate areas. So that at the end of this process, we'll also develop our accreditation goals that we'll work on for the next 5 years. And those are typically mostly achievement type goals as it relates to KeySet, not all, but pretty student focused.
I envision these folks getting some data similar to what our night one was as a community. Their night one, so to speak, for the staff would be to start to say, what does the board say is kind of our marching orders? Now let's start looking at a kind of an environmental scan for each one of these areas to say, what does data show us that we're doing well, maybe growth areas that they can start to think about, what are their lead measures for that? And so it's probably a lot of exploratory at that point, but starting to kind of develop some teams and groups to tackle this work.
And even what data do you need to go get?
Exactly.
I mean, you might even have the right stuff yet.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have asked Dr. Hart to come and join us and help facilitate and lead through a process throughout the spring semester. So
Well, you guys should be committed. And I'm just not blowing smoke. I was telling this patron back here, because I can talk to anybody. Sorry about that, by the way. I mean, the boards that are spending time around this conversation. I mean, it's plain and simple, you're outperforming people at lunch. And so I would challenge you to continue to spend time where you're spending time, because the kids are going to benefit. And I know that's your goal. So appreciate meeting you, and it's fun to build those relationships, and if we can ever be of further assistance, don't hesitate to ask. So,
Thank you for the process. Probably, I can say it, but probably say it amongst for the board, so. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. I think it's been helpful. I don't feel like we probably would have gotten to this point without some help, so thank you.
yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
and before we adjourn,
Mm-hmm.
it is board member recognition month, and just want to say thank you to all of you guys for your service. It is much appreciated, and I'm feel very blessed to have you guys as a part of our team and value what each one of you bring. Thank you for spending time helping make our district better. I know it's not a lot. We do have some snacks and treats over there. Please grab some of those before you leave.
Going to pose for a photo.
But we do appreciate you and thank you.
That's the best part. That's why they didn't tell you. Photo op.
No, he did. Coming next to
So we have a little bit of, still left to attend to, so, personnel.
August, were there any last minute additions? No.
Do represent.
Okay. I move to approve the personnel as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to approve is presented. Any further questions? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?